Welcome, everyone. Today, we are diving into an explainer on a topic that has absolutely dominated the headlines lately. We're going to unpack the incredibly complex web of California's election systems and, the intense controversy surrounding them. Our goal here? To cut right through the noise. We're looking strictly at the facts, the hard data, and the legal frameworks to figure out what's really going on beneath all that political spin. So, right off the bat, we have to ask the million-dollar question. Is California actually a fraudster's paradise like some critics claim, or is it literally just a slow, gray machine operating exactly as it was legally designed to? This one central tension has sparked some seriously fiery rhetoric from all sides of the political spectrum. So let's step back, take a deep breath, and look directly at the source material. Here's our roadmap for today. Part 1, we'll cover California's election machinery. Part 2, examining those viral fraud claims. Part 3, we're bringing in the homelessness factor. And finally, Part 4, the recent federal pushback. Let's jump right into Section 1, California's election machinery and the legal framework of voting. To really grasp these controversies, we absolutely have to understand the completely legal framework that creates California's unique voting environment. First up, automatic DMV registration. Basically, if you get a driver's license, you're automatically registered to vote. Second, universal mail-in voting. This means every single registered voter is automatically sent a ballot. Third, legal ballot harvesting. Now, this allows political operatives or volunteers to actually go door to door, collecting and submitting ballots on behalf of voters. And lastly, a 7-day post-election counting window. So ballots arriving up to a full week later are still perfectly valid and counted as long as they were postmarked on time. So, looking at all those mechanisms working together, it really begs the question, does this totally legal setup invite actual widespread fraud, or does it just breed widespread suspicion? I mean, let's be real. When you have a process that literally takes weeks to finalize and you see these massive shifts in vote totals days after the polls have already closed, it naturally creates a highly tense, suspicious environment for the voting public. Actually, a federal prosecutor who's been looking into these election issues hit the nail on the head recently. They said, whether it's legitimate or not, people are distrustful of a system like that. Think about it. When you build a machine that's this slow and, frankly, largely unobservable to the average everyday citizen, it generates skepticism, completely regardless of its actual on-paper legitimacy. Okay, moving on to Section 2. Let's examine some of these viral fraud claims and separate myth from reality. If you were following the recent Los Angeles mayor's race, you know the internet absolutely exploded with viral allegations. One massive claim that spread like wildfire showed that 1,160 voters were registered to the Midnight Mission on Skid Row. The catch? That shelter only has 84 beds. For a lot of folks, this was the ultimate smoking gun of a fake vote farm. But here's the reality check. State law actually encourages unhoused individuals to use shelters and drop-in centers as their legal mailing addresses so they can protect their constitutional right to vote. So what we're looking at isn't a crime scene. It's literally just a mailbox doing the job of a mailbox. Then, there was this photo circulating of candidate Nithia Raman holding a giant, novelty $600,000 check at one of these centers. This immediately sparked wild rumors that she was out there funding a fake voter shelter. But if you actually zoom in on the memo line of the check, it was a cardboard prop from a completely different politician, specifically for an RV disposal program, and it was taken 2 full years before this election even happened. We also saw thousands of people panicking because they logged into the state's ballot tracker, and it showed their vote status as simply outbound, which led to massive fears of mail interception. But outbound is literally just step 1. It simply means the state has put your blank ballot in the mail. It's just saying the check is in the mail. It definitely does not mean your returned, filled-out vote was rejected. Now, having said all that, just because those specific viral claims were completely debunked doesn't mean the system is flawless. We absolutely have to draw a hard line between 2 totally different concepts here: dirty voter rolls versus stolen cast ballots. California's automatic registration system undoubtedly leads to messy, outdated, or dirty voter rolls. People move, people pass away, and the system is slow to catch up. But having a messy registration list is fundamentally different from a bad actor actively taking that name, casting a fraudulent ballot, and successfully getting it past signature verification. The sources show plenty of evidence for the dirty rolls, for sure. But actual proof of massive amounts of stolen cast ballots, that remains elusive. All right, let's turn to Section 3. The homelessness factor and the federal fallout happening on Skid Row. You honestly cannot separate California's election controversies from its massive, ongoing homelessness crisis. $1 billion. Let that sink in. That is the amount of federal HUD taxpayer money given to Los Angeles homeless programs just since 2021. And right now, federal task forces are aggressively stepping in and cutting off tens of millions of these funds, citing severe mismanagement and a total failure to safeguard against fraud. Let's break that down mathematically to put it in perspective. The agency in question was allocated over $950 million. When you divide that out, it shakes out to approximately $44,000 spent per unhoused person. Critics are increasingly pointing out that the crisis has essentially morphed into a massive lucrative industry. And when you have this sheer volume of money floating around with a lack of oversight, you're going to get federal investigators swarming. And that lack of oversight, it spills directly into the voting process. On-the-ground investigations on Skid Row have uncovered unhoused individuals reporting being actively bribed for their signatures on political petitions. We're talking direct offers of cash, cigarettes, or grand promises of housing. And guys, this isn't just some crazy internet rumor. A woman named Brenda Armstrong recently pleaded guilty in federal court to actively paying unhoused individuals to register to vote. So while the viral internet memes might completely miss the mark, highly localized boots-on-the-ground registration fraud, that is a documented legal reality. All of this creates an incredibly tense, chaotic political atmosphere. You've got Mayor Karen Bass having to publicly defend the city's homeless programs against these massive federal funding cuts. But simultaneously, and this is a bizarre twist even for LA politics, she is facing a massive lawsuit over infrastructure negligence related to the devastating Palisades fire. And one of the lead plaintiffs suing the city government for catastrophic failure? It's her own brother. It is a striking example of the intense, multi-front pressure facing California's political leaders right now. Which brings us to our final section, Section 4, Federal Pushback and Attempts at Overhauling the System. The federal government is absolutely not just sitting back watching this play out. They are actively intervening. President Trump recently signed an executive order heavily targeting the United States Postal Service with two massive mandates. Number one, states must provide a verified citizenship list 30 days prior to an election if they want to send mail-in ballots. Number two, they are mandating unique tracking barcodes on every single ballot. The executive branch is essentially trying to use the USPS to bottleneck or attack the pipeline of automatic ballot mailouts and ballot harvesting. But wait, the pushback isn't just coming from the executive branch. It's happening in the judicial branch too. The Supreme Court is currently considering a major case called Watson v. RNC. This case asks a very fundamental question. Does federal law require that mail-in ballots be physically received by Election Day rather than just postmarked by Election Day? If the Supreme Court rules yes, it would immediately and completely strike down California's controversial 7-day post-election counting window. That would be a huge game changer. And remember, all of these high-level systemic battles are happening against the backdrop of real upcoming elections. Take a look at the math for the California governor's race polling right now. Becerra sits at 58% and Hilton is at 35%. But notice that 17% slice of undecided voters right there in the middle. For challengers trying to overcome the state's deeply built-in political machinery, capturing that 17%, the people who are likely frustrated with the status quo, is the absolute mathematical hill they have to conquer. Which leaves us with a final, really important thought to ponder. As federal executive orders and massive Supreme Court cases attempt to forcefully overhaul California's voting laws from the top down, will these systemic legal challenges actually fix this complex gray machine? Or, when you're dealing with a system this entrenched, is undeniable, overwhelming voter turnout the only real audit that truly matters? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking questions, keep looking at the data, and I'll catch you next time.